afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's presentation by Athena Associates. Now, it wouldn't be prudent of us, first of all, to acknowledge all the invited guests. So first of all, the board of directors, we say a warm good afternoon. And to each and every other people present today, equally we say a warm good afternoon. Now, we as Athena Associates, first of all, like to commend the fact that you as a board have opted to utilize us once more for your services. They say that the problem shared is a problem half solved. So we would like to exculpate, to dissect, to analyze, to scrutinize, and to prioritize each and every one of your issues. For the purposes of the same, we have opted to use what we like to call the prioritization of issues. So first up, we are going to deal with the appointment of the group CEO. Now, you will all agree with me that each and every organization and entity requires a leader for it to function successfully. Henceforth, we have opted to use the same. Beyond that, we're going to look at the group legal and negotiation strategy for Nicola. After that, we shall look at the Nicola fine. Ladies and gentlemen, Nicola seems to be a big problem which needs to be sorted. Hence, we feel that it should be given the required attention. Aside from that, there's the issue involving Tunisia and the due diligence. Last but not the least, we're going to have the issues of the Shared Services Center, as well as the ever-important ethics. And beyond that, I shall give you the conclusion right at the end. So let's get straight into business. We have opted to utilize a criteria as provided by you. Now, first of all, again, we'd like to commend the fact that you have opted to make this as transparent a process in choosing your new CEO. 4 options are available. And we feel that, ladies and gentlemen, based on experience, based on the fact that each and every one of them has qualifications, that you go step by step by step by step. Now, you all agree with me that a leader envisions and epitomizes what an organization is. Choose a wrong leader, and you could find yourselves destroyed as an organization. Organizations such as Yahoo have opted for people such as Marissa Mayer, and today Yahoo finds themselves in problems. Other organizations, such as BP, opted to utilize a different strategy and chose a leader who delivered on each and every one of the critical success factors that they opted for. Yes, the oil prices did reduce, but because of the leader that they had in place, ladies and gentlemen, BP is a flourishing company. So we feel as MCOM that you equally should take a similar strategy. Now, we're going to look at factors such as forward-thinking ability, the ability to take calculated risks, not just any sort of risk, but a calculated risk. This way, you can keep your money and utilize it in the way that you should. Others will include emerging market cross-culture orientation, biasness towards thoughtful action, and the balance in conflicting views. So we have opted to number each and every one of your potential CEOs as 1, 2, 3, and 4. And henceforth, we have rated them against the options. And ladies and gentlemen, at the end of the day, we feel that Mr. Mtelo Nyati is the best option. Simply because, first of all, he is readily available. Each and every one of your problems requires to be dealt with at the current time. You cannot afford to postpone them and deal with them later. So Mr. Nyati is available today. So we recommend as Athena Associates that you utilize Mr. Nyati. Aside from this, you notice that based on the corporate governance Cadbury report of the UK, it is not prudent for an organization such as yourself, which is listed, to have a person acting as the board chairperson as well as the CEO. Henceforth, we recommend that he ceases to act as the CEO and Mr. Nyati be appointed to do the same. Next up, we have the issue of Nicola, the problem. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you find that Nicola has a legal fine attached to it, and this fine was taken to court. You challenged the decision, and henceforth, you found yourselves potentially paying a fine of $3.9 US. Now, ladies and gentlemen, no organization in the world can boast to say they can readily avail that kind of money. The options are available are simple. We have option 1, 2, 3, and 4. Myself, I shall run you through the first option, and then I shall hand over to the ever-willing David Mwanza, who shall run you through the other 3 options. So the first option is simple. Take the unilateral action. This has 2 subparts. The first part is basically to accept the fine. Now, ladies and gentlemen, after critical analysis, you shall notice that there is a 98% chance of success. 50% is good, but 98%, ladies and gentlemen, is a great chance. So we as Athena Associates vehemently, and I repeat, vehemently recommend the first option. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it would be biased for us not to run you through the other options. So right before I hand over to David, let me just give another recommendation. You notice that an executive director from your board went out and felt the need to issue a statement. So for purposes of going forward and avoiding any further litigation, we recommend that you establish, if you already don't have one, a PR department, making sure that each and everything that is said by your organization goes through the PR and you avoid any litigation and newspaper scandals. I shall now hand over to David.
Thank you very much. Now, my previous speaker has already alluded to the introduction to this issue. We have 4 options currently on the table in which to deal with the Nicola fine. Let's look at the second one. This is a fine to negotiate and inject cash. You could pay an amount of 14.7 million. Now, this amount will see you pay this amount. Afterwards, you will be given 12 months in which to deal with the SIM card registration requirements. This is ample time for you to sensitize your customer base and for you to maintain them and clearly have a clear option. In terms of suitability, acceptability, and feasibility, this option passes on all of them. But comparing it against the first option is another issue. You look at the two and you see that payment under the first one, you pay 0 as the fine could be declared null and void. And this is something that we cannot ignore. Therefore, the first option passes over the second based on that issue. Then you could negotiate and list your shares. This option entails that you pay an amount of 19.8 million. Now, in paying this amount, after you will pay it over a period of 3 years. Now, in paying this amount, you also have to list your shares. You will list your shares. These are 60%. 60% of your shares means you lose control. Control is crucial. Nicola is your highest revenue earner. In the portfolio, it brings the most revenue. Therefore, you should fight to maintain it, and therefore, it cannot pass under acceptability. Let's look at the next option. The next option could be to just move out from Nicola. Now, this market, as already alluded to, is the highest revenue earner. Therefore, it cannot pass on acceptability as it brings you the highest revenue. Let's go on to the next issue, which still resides in Nicola. Now, you have done some adjustments to the financial statements that were given, and these are improving or providing a provision of 19.3 million on the backdrop of the fine that was given of 58 million Sadimban dollar. Now, in line with the International Financial Reporting Standards, we believe as this is not correct, as you used the strategy and the dividend policy. Now, International Financial Reporting Standards 38 state that you must use a measurement criteria that is the best estimate as at the date of the financial statements, and therefore, this is not the correct method to use. We recommend, in line with the requirements of IS 37, you use the best estimate, and the best estimate of the fine is the amount that was given on the fine as at that date. Other supporting arguments for this could come from the prudence concept, which is a basis of the ISB framework, the framework that makes standards. You should not overestimate your assets or underestimate your liabilities. Therefore, we must provide for the fine as it is. Now, arguments will be made to say providing for the fine means you're accepting the fine. We choose to disagree, because you are simply complying with the requirements of the International Financial Reporting Standard so that you are not found wanting on other issues, including the one you already have. At this point, we'll go on into the next issue, which is the due diligence report.
Thank you very much. Now, members of the board, we are grateful that you took as an idea and as a decision to venture into Tunisia. CloudNet is one of the market leaders. The due diligence report that we have here has 5 aspects that will address the 5 top issues that you need to look at. Customer. Tunisia has 63 million as a subscriber base. What an astonishing statistic that is. Further, as if that's not enough, CloudNet in the Tunisian market is the broadband leader and also the technology leader. We move on to compliance, complying with the regulatory requirements. As one of the critical success factors that were put in as you are under the first bid, meeting the 7% environmental track record was one of them. And CloudNet is part of that market, which means they are meeting. Obviously, under compliance, you will be able to comply. Financial side. CloudNet has 20% market share because the 82% market share in Tunisia is shared amongst the top 4, which CloudNet is amongst them. And that means CloudNet is able to get almost 20% of the revenues thereof. Environmental and social, married to compliance. Why do I say so? Like in the critical success factors, the 7% carbon emissions that was set as an environmental track record, you'll be able to safeguard the environment you operate therein. Innovation. CloudNet, ladies and gentlemen, is the first to 4G. Married to your strategic objectives under the strategic fit. This means you will be able to combine the capabilities to move forward. And who knows, you might be the next or the first to go with the 5G. You need to move into Tunisia and acquire CloudNet. There are issues of the share offer that has come in. This means that you need The premium has now been raised from the previous acquisition, and that's what we think it is the best. From now onwards, we move on to the Shared Services Center.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're pleased to know that you are actually pleased with our proof of the 6.6 billion Sadiman savings in the SSC decision. And I know from this, you're able to tell that this cost-saving initiative was actually the best in that you're able to actually deliver these savings, so you have something that you can look into. Then apart from that, ladies and gentlemen, you've decided to go ahead with the SSC decision by moving your transactions away from the other locations and bringing them to the shared location for you to deliver even more savings by the year 2016. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you've decided to go with a 4-step process, if I can call it that. You want to move your transactions in 4 gradual movements. And apart from that, we think this is the best option, actually. So we have our advantages and our disadvantages. Advantages of this gradual shift are you still enjoy the savings even as you go on with the SSC implementation. Apart from that, you please your stakeholders in that jobs are not all transferred at one time, but in a gradual process. And in that, you're able to increase awareness and you're able to sensitize the public on why this is the best decision, why you are going on with the implementation of the shared services. But then, ladies and gentlemen, there was a slight oversight in the calculations. Your budget at completion was at 7.7 billion dollars, but with your actual cost of work performed, which is about 2.5, it just shows that your estimation at completion will actually bring those costs to 7.8 billion dollars, which is about 100 million increase in your initial costs. But apart from that, ladies and gentlemen, this amount cannot be put as a basis why you should not go ahead with the gradual move. And on top of that, your pros outweigh your cons, and as such, this is the best decision. And at this point, we'll now move on to the investor side of all these issues, what your shareholders are actually interested in, what your investors are looking into. So we'll look at the investor ratios as my next colleague takes over.
Now, when looking at building your strategy, there's one thing you should always look at, and that is your stakeholders. Who are your most powerful stakeholders? Who are the stakeholders that can influence your strategy? And the biggest of all those is the shareholders. Therefore, you need to build your strategy in such a way that the shareholders are pleased. In this are the financial ratios. These ratios will give a depiction of how you are meeting those needs. Firstly, we look at the return on equity employed, or the return on equity, sorry. Now, with the return on equity, we see a drop from prior year to the current year. With this, there has been a lesser drop, or to say a 25% drop from the first year, which means there is a loss in meeting those needs. And looking at the other three, which are the earnings per share, the dividend per share, and lastly, the gearing ratio. This has also been passed. The 25% limit is being crossed by yourselves. Therefore, you must pay critical attention and change your strategy so that you are now well-rounded to meet the needs of these shareholders. At this point, we'll go into the ethics.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, an organization such as yourself needs to focus on what we like to call the triple bottom line, factoring in the environment, the financial side of it, as well as the social. So it's important that you also critically analyze what we like to call the ethics. So for financial reporting purposes, it is important that you adhere to the international accounting standards as opposed to any other standard which might inflate your revenue. As far as the implementation of the SSC is concerned, the gradual process benefits you in the sense that you're able to sensitize other people in relation to the same. For the appointment of the lawyer, ladies and gentlemen, quite right, the executive director might have issued comments directing or pointing towards the fact that you did it in order for you to gain advantage in Nicola. But we, as Athena Associates, feel more that the appointment was based on the fact that the Chief Justice is a very experienced party who would benefit you in regard of the case. Last but not least, the selection of the group CEO. The transparency that this depicts favors you in the sense that you're able to gain by far of goodwill, and hence your share profits will gain. Last but not least, we have the various recommendations. First up, we advise that you appoint Mr. Nyati as your group CEO. We also recommend that you challenge the fine in court, you abide by the international accounting standards, that being IAS 37, as well as the prudence concept, in recognizing and accounting, and you utilize a balanced scorecard, ensuring that you as an organization meets each and every one of your requirements, as well as your strategic priorities, and henceforth continue to be the flourishing organization that you, MCOM, are today. On this note, we as Athena Associates rest our case and hopefully hope that you as an organization can go the distance. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Athena. First of all, the acknowledgement around the shared service centre outcome. We've done a few calculations ourselves, and I think it stands you in good stead on your own ethics that you shared them. Well done. Then with regards to your recommendations and the summary thereof, one of the things that is top of mind after the CEO around that fine and challenging it is just wanting to understand your thinking on how you fund that. The requirement around what you're proposing means you'd need to pay out first, and the full amount, which we have not provided for, with the view that we would recover over time, and that time value of money legally, it is a protracted process. So I'd like to understand your views on how this board should consider funding for that. And secondly, the implications of a new government that is currently being put in place and the relationship we have with them, starting out to your points around the various pieces on ethics and relationship, how you see that possibly playing out.
So you're going to notice that, of course you will notice you're the board, that first of all, savings have been made. Savings have been made as a result of the shared services center. So what we recommend is, beyond just using the cash from the shared services center, you also take advantage of the fact that, yes, your share premium has increased as a result of the good things that you as an organization are doing. So you can then float some shares. But beyond this, the best option of them all is what we'd like to call monetizing of your assets. You have certain assets which are passive and held as available for sale. So you monetize those assets. In the event that still the money is not sufficient, you dip into your cash from your shared services center. But we do not recommend that you utilize each and lifeblood of each and every organization. You never know what problems are becoming around the corner, which might require cash. So in that sense, then you float some shares. That way you avoid dilution of your current standings. Then for the second question, it shall be tackled by my colleague over here.
Now, in addition to what he said, in doing or preparing all these finances to pay the cash, there's also the added advantage that you challenge this in court. Now, by challenging this in court, we've talked to the legal expert who say there's a 98% chance of victory. 98%. With risk, if you have a 98% chance of victory, those are very good odds. So going with this, there is a chance that we will win this court case and the fine will be declared null and void. We look more at the benefits of this. If the fine is declared null and void, we will be cleared of all our issues. And we could be seen as not breaking the compliance or the regulations at all. This will repair our reputation with not only the Nicolian government, but other people outside. And this is how we rebuild our relationship, by showing that in the first place, we did provide this and we did not break any regulations. Thank you.
Now, beyond this, you're also going to notice that you have a 30% tolerance towards risk. So 30% in comparison to 98% is something which isn't even fair to compare. So the fact that you currently stand at 30% and you have been given the 98% assurance that, yes, things shall work out, this basically fits with your strategic priorities. So we as Athena recommend that you go that way.
Just a quick addition. In the next 24 months, you need 24 months to raise that money. And once this goes through, it means you will be able to raise that money as MCOM.
Thank you, Athena, for the presentation. It was very well executed. As a board member, I am extremely upset that, if I'm reading correctly, and you need to just guide me on this, that essentially you're saying we should have taken a provision in our financials for the full value of this fine, and we did not. Yeah? So what do I do about that as a board? I mean, do we go and fire the CFO? Whose head needs to roll in this case? Because we are obviously accountable for that.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, to say you fire the CFO would be a step too drastic.
Sorry, or the auditor, or the audit committee, something's not right here.
Yes. Yes, please. So yes, to say that you fire the CFO is a step which is a bit too drastic. Clearly, as you have noticed, the statements were signed off as well by both your auditors. So what we as Athena Associates would recommend more is the fact that auditors are required to, first of all, be kept up to date and kept abreast. It's part of their professional due care and professional behavior, that they be kept up to date in terms of each and every accounting standard, each and every change in accounting standard, as well as each and every change in auditing standards. So a more prudent step would be, first of all, to basically shift the liability onto the auditors. The fact that they were employed, subcontracted basically, to look at your financials, and even they did not notice that. Furthermore, beyond this, it would also be unfair to simply let the CFO just walk away. So as a result, a stern warning is our recommendation, in the sense that the minute you warn him today, him or her, the minute you warn them today, you tell them simply that going forward, we shall not tolerate or take such action. And hence, it might lead to the termination of your contract or job. Do you think he needs a bonus? No, totally not.
Thank you very much for the presentation. You ended up in saying the shareholders is your most important stakeholder. If one look over the years, that perception has actually changed. Previously, it was all about money. You talked about the triple bottom line as well. But how do you balance, for example, if you look at the fine? The government could keep you busy for the next 5 years. It's 50% of your business, of the group. So it will take your eye off the ball. Just share with us your thinking around that. That you haven't really considered the government that has, through its regulator, implement the fine and trying to resolve your issues with him.
Okay. So, if I get you clearly, it is taking into account the other stakeholder being the government. Okay. So now, in managing the stakeholders, it is in our presentation, we clearly depicted one of the shareholders in terms of the gearing ratios. But yes, it is important to take into account all the shareholders, not just the government itself, but the NTRA, your customers, and your internal employees. But with the government, the biggest thing is to repair the relationship. And the relationship will start with how we deal with the court case. We first need to prove our innocence in the issue, and we need to negotiate on a level playing field such that we can provide, or we can comply with their regulation through a stated time so that we don't disadvantage. We show them how us stepping back and not deactivating SIM cards there and then can help the citizens or the general public in general and repair relationships like that.
Maybe just a comment, don't you think you will, through the court case, destroy the relationship forever?
So in our opinion, we feel that the step to first of all pay the fine, even before we challenge it further, shows sincerity on your parts as a board. So the government is going to actually analyze to say, this is a party which is actually sincere in their operations. The fact that they have gone and paid the 3.9 billion beforehand. But then it's important for even the government to acknowledge the fact that no one is above the law, and the law is the law. So if your lawyer, as well as your legal section, has advised to say that there is actually, there's actually room for you to benefit legally, it's very much ethical, it's very much within your rights for you to further challenge the court case. So we feel that that option be the option that you take as a board.
Thank you very much for the presentation. One of the first points that you point out was the leadership. I think that due to the leadership that we had, we were in a big situation in Nicola. We replaced a lot of executives, and we as board were concerned about what is going to happen in the next step in the new leadership. Who is going to provide the strong engagement across the organization? We're in a distressed organization. So what is how can I be confident as a board member that Mtulu, the internal candidate, will provide this leadership? Because this person has shown us really strong skills in technological point of view, but it's still internal. How can I get confident? What is the confidence you can give me that this person will be a game changer for my organization?
That's a very good question. And based on the backdrop that we gave as to the importance of having a good leader set in place, I'm simply just going to make reference to the fact that Mr. Nyati is still around and operational in the organization already depicts the fact that he is one person that you can rely on as far as strength is concerned. If Mr. Nyati wasn't a willing and able candidate, he would have equally probably taken a step back, if not already left. The fact that he actually even operates in Nicola is a sign that even he is willing to go forward. So what we feel is, based on the background that he, first of all, has worked for organizations like Microsoft, he provides you with the, like you have put, the telecommunications and technological aspect of it. The fact that he's already an internal candidate means he's well aware of everything that's transpiring within the organization. So even he is put in a position where he's not starting from without, but speaking from within in the way he's going to operate. He's going to give you the required guidance, he's going to give you the required assistance. And there is the saying that there's no I in team. So there's no I in the word team. So he's not going to be operating on his own, but he's going to be backed by not only the executive directors, but as well as the non-executive directors and any other support staff that you as an organization have. So he's going to be more than well positioned to operate going forward.
Okay, thank you, Team Athena. That was a very good presentation. I quite enjoyed it. I just want some clarification on your recommendation on the SSC. You said maintain its status quo. And I just want to understand what you mean, because we appreciate the 6.6 billion initial savings, but we did give you the brief that now we are experiencing time delays and cost overruns, and this is going to erode even the 6.6 billion savings that we have. So if we continue at this pace, the slow pace of transactions in Nicola and other countries, we are actually going to be in a loss position. And I don't think you actually told us what to do. So maintaining the status quo means what? We must just take the overruns and
We're going to do this in 4 years, 2016 to 2019. We think that's the best approach with regards to your stakeholders and other parties that are affected by this. But of course, during these 4 years, there might be all these issues of the costs, the savings slightly being eroded. But from the calculations, there's the budgeted cost at completion, and then there's the cost based on how far we've gone, the actual costs for the work performed. We're able to see that the estimated costs at completion they're slightly higher by just 100 million Sadimban dollars. So they are material, but they're not so material that would disregard this whole process, because it's 4 years. I think as MCOM, you can sacrifice that 4 years. Okay, not really sacrificing it, but yes, there's 2016 up to 2019. We can just, for that moment, and looking at the difference in the amounts being not so big, I think we can still go with it.
In addition, I think you as an organization, as MCOM, see yourselves as being a going concern, and not an organization that's simply going to stop operating as soon as 2019 is over. So for the sake of the bigger picture and what the long term has for you, yes, it means partially the savings already being made might be eroded, but then the bigger picture is way more promising, because you're going to find that you appease your stakeholders, your shareholders, the governments, as well as your employees in various regions. And henceforth, you give yourself that platform and basis for you to go forward as an organization and build, and you have the what we like to call the strategic capabilities for you as an organization to then build on and become the success that you see yourselves being.
I do think it's really critical around the buy-in for the SSC if you're going to put all others on board, and given the noise in Nicola. So for us as a board, that's important that the 4 years pan out. What has been highlighted by yourselves is the results and the fact that we've performed below what our expectations were. We have 75 days literally till the end of the year. And what is important for us is how do we message that? What is the communication recommendation you have that'll shape our shareholders and the market's expectation of our results? Because if the results come out and they are worse than we anticipated, your components around the funding requirements, the restored confidence, a new CEO, and some of the relationships are not grounded on a solid foundation. What are your recommendations on that communication and messaging around our key investor ratios?
As an organization, there are always factors that you are in control of and factors that you aren't in control of. I'll make reference to the occurrences in Nicola. No one could have seen the Blakonda army coming and abducting the girls, and henceforth leading to the NTRA bringing up the sanctions which they did to say all SIM cards should be registered, and if not, should be terminated. So that is a factor which you, as the board, could not basically have seen coming. But then in the same sense, there are factors that you can see coming. So as a board, what we would recommend to you is that you simply disclose as things are. That way, you are behaving ethically and in compliance with the Cadbury report in disclosing your operations to the shareholders as they are. And for purposes of going forward, even the shareholders are going to be able to analyze to say, yes, the board have done their best in mitigating the factors that they could mitigate. But in the same sense, there have also been factors which they could not have prepared for. And the board will most likely, the shareholders will most likely be able in a position now to say we're going to further support if need be, because they have seen that you are a board which works prudently, you're a board which ensures that your profits come at the end of the day as best as you can.
You want us to pay the fine now, argue later, sell off some assets in order to fund that. You want us to take the government to court and not register on the local stock exchange. I am an independent board member, I must say, but why would you not want to have skin in the game in the local country where you've got so much pressure from your customer base, who's really your subscribers, as well as from your government?
Sorry, could you come again? I think I seem
we,
to
we,
miss a
we
statement.
appoint someone local,
Yes.
okay, in showing support, okay. And that's about it. And we pay the fine, but we still take the government to court, okay. But the local people are putting us under pressure that we're not investing in the country. So, and you're saying don't invest in the country by listing on the local stock exchange. Why not?
Why not?
As in, you know, what do you
Sure.
think we could do to win back some kudos?
Okay. I can take it. Okay, now, as an organization or as any business, you need to take certain approaches. And we can all agree that an organization is in business to make profits. Yes, it pursues the triple bottom line, but finances, social and environmental, financial is also one of those bottom lines. Now, looking at that, we need to maintain Nicola because Nicola provides the highest revenue to the whole portfolio. It brings in the highest revenue, and therefore losing it would be detrimental to the organization as a whole. And to add on that, there are also other ways in which we can show our commitment to the locals. We can intensify our CSR, go with the Forum for Stakeholder form of CSR. Like Bakonda is abducting girls and whatnot, we can put maybe cameras at border posts. In such ways, we are supporting the government and the communities.